Thanks once again to Andrew Hosey for that update. And we're turning our attention now to a local concern, something that we all think about on a regular basis. Either how to get or how to keep a job, right? Or how to do better at your job, get that promotion. Are you somebody who's on the hunt for a job right now? I know it's a tough market. People reporting it's taking far longer than it used to secure employment. A lot of the attention when we talk about jobs at the moment is focused on AI, pointing out how this technology has impacted job prospects, especially for fresh graduates and young prospective employees who just want to get their foot in the door. But what about people who are nearing the end of their career? There's a recent study from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College that investigated what happened to U.S.-based workers aged 55 and above after the arrival of generative AI, ChatGPT more specifically. They found that employees in jobs that had high exposure to AI roles, that think computer programming, tax preparation, really became significantly more likely to leave their work and also to become unemployed, not to retire early, but to become unemployed in their work than they were before ChatGPT was launched. So the loose suggestion there is that there could be a role that AI is playing, especially when it comes to older employees with more experience. Now, job exits among older programmers rose by more than 25% between 2014 and 2026. Accountants and auditors saw an increase around 2022, by about 22% there. And of course, there could be many factors to this. Some might be choosing an earlier retirement, as we said. But the study pointed out that a lot of them are actually staying in the labor force unemployed. So this did get us thinking. What is the impact of automation on the more experienced workforce here in the UAE? Are we seeing similar sorts of trends? And what is the job market like if you do have 20, 30 plus years of experience? Joining us now is Zaid Alhiali, who is a co-founder of Mark Ellis. Zaid, thanks for coming into the studio today.
Thank you, Sonia.
Now, Zaid, first of all, what's your reaction to this story based on what you've been hearing as somebody who works in the recruitment industry in the UAE? Do you feel it is getting tougher out there for those who have more experience in certain fields?
I don't think it's becoming tougher. I think it's becoming more of a choice. So employers actually have more choice to hire people that are younger with the intention to train them and develop them. But that's not to say that the experience that people have, collated over the past 20, 30 years counts for nothing. Of course, this experience can actually be taken into consideration when working with big employees or the small employees also. Because if we talk about AI cannot be used unless it has the right data. And where do they get the data from? It's from people who have been in the industry for the past 20 or 30 years. So in essence, rather than, so if I'm talking to someone who's 55 years old right now and he's worried about their job security, I would say look at your job as an investment from the knowledge that you have gained for the past 20 or 30 years and actually sell that into the organization in a different way. So you can actually enhance the AI tools they're using to come up with better decisions for the business. So right now is a transition phase, but I don't see it as a threat in all honesty.
Let's get into that a little bit more detailed, because how can people sell themselves in that way? What's some specific advice if somebody has found themselves, either they've lost their job, which we have been hearing quite a bit of lately, or they've decided to make a career transition on their own and it's taking some time to get back into the workforce? How can they position themselves to prospective employers as somebody, like you said, who can really help improve the impact and output you can get with AI?
Sure. I think they have to focus on the problems that this industry they're applying for is going through right now. If they can focus on the problem and present a solution using their skill sets they've been gathered for the past 20 or 30 years, then they can actually communicate in a different way to the employer. So the employer will no longer look at their age as an issue or as a challenge. They will look at their experience as actually an add-on to whatever the problem they're trying to solve right now.
When I saw this story, another thing I thought is, are people just retiring earlier? It's been a good market. A lot of people focus on that FIRE approach so that they can retire early. People maybe just not wanting to work until they're 65 anymore. Is this a trend that you're seeing, or do you still see that people want to stay in the workforce and keep working?
I think that depends if you've been saving up and you have a good pension to be able to retire at 55. But no, I think in this region, it's very difficult to actually gauge it because there isn't any statistics to showcase that the retiring age is at 65. I mean, if you're an expat, for example, you can't get a job after 65 anyway because your visa cannot be renewed and so on and so forth. So there are challenges from that perspective. But from what I see, 55 is not old. So you can continue working if you have the passion for it, of course.
Another thing I've heard talked about is pivoting. I have a friend, he's in his early 50s, worked in communication related fields, which of course we know AI is doing a lot of that work now. So he's actively vocalizing how he can transition into an AI safe career because he said, I know in a couple years my job doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
How much is this a consideration for people coming to you looking for a new job, something that's going to be AI proof essentially?
I think your friend is a very smart guy because you have to be proactive nowadays and actually upskill yourself. So no matter what age you are in, especially if we talk about that category of age between, let's say, 50 to 55, you have to be ever more into upskilling yourself than before, because AI is catching up really, really quickly, especially in these fields, communication and so on. So if your friend is doing the right thing by enhancing his skill sets and making sure that he is actually beating that trend and making sure that he is adding value in that industry.
Zaid is going to stay with us for a little bit longer. If you do have any questions specifically around HR or recruitment or your job, you can get those in on 4001. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to continue on this conversation on the agenda. It is 20 minutes past 11. You are tuned into The Agenda with myself, Sonal. And in studio with me is Zaid Alhiali, who is co-founder of Mark Ellis. That's because we've been talking about a number of recruitment and job-related topics. That after a story and a study came out about how people are actually struggling with AI and automation in the workforce later in their careers, leading to more employment in the ages above 55. That's over in the US. We've been hearing Zaid's take on that here in the UAE. But there's another story that caught my eye, and it's about how Meta is being sued, Zaid, by individuals for the way in which they were laid off. We know they had massive layoffs recently. Now, these individuals say AI tools unfairly influenced who was selected for that redundancy. Basically, those who took disability or maternity leave were disproportionately targeted by these AI tools that are looking at keystroke trackers and, just basic data to show that you were active online. So when we talk about AI in HR, are we seeing it increasingly used in how employees' performance is assessed? What's your take on this particular story?
Okay, so first of all, my take on AI generally, I'm actually pro AI because we've seen some amazing stuff that can actually come out of using AI within the business. It can increase productivity, it can enhance people's skill sets, and so on and so forth. But I'm also against the idea of AI taking over decision-making part, especially when it comes to human resources. So if we talk about the Meta situation now, I actually feel for these employees if they have been sacked purely because of data that has been triggered from an AI tool. Effectively, what will happen is this will be a trend in the market and people will lose their jobs unfairly. And therefore, what I recommend is always a combination of two things. So use AI as a tool to support you, but as an HR manager, for example, who is actually looking at the data, they have to involve themselves to look at the human side. At the end of the day, 8,000 people have been impacted. These are 8,000 homes. AI should never be the reason for sacking these people. And I blame it on the human side for actually allowing AI to trigger these points without going back and checking why and what's the reason for it, and can we actually enhance these people's skill sets and maybe replace them or move them over to different departments that can help them add more value to the business. Because what these companies do, they get rid of 8,000 people from there and they replace them with someone else. Why do you do that? You might as well just look at the different situations and help the people to get back into different job roles. Let alone, of course, the AI cannot understand if this lady, for example, who works there is pregnant, or this person is taking a parental leave, for example. These situations has to be monitored by a human being.
And now, when we talk more broadly about the job market, whether it is AI or other factors at play, we have heard about a lot of layoffs. I mean, Meta, as we just mentioned, had massive layoffs recently. We've heard about local layoffs happening as well. What are you seeing right now in the job market? Are you seeing an influx of people looking for jobs? Have you seen any changes?
See, the recent situation in the UAE and the GCC region, generally, it has slowed down the job market. Let's be honest with each other, because, of course, with the war and so on, people have, or companies have reduced their amount of spend in terms of increasing their headcounts and so on. So we've seen jobs reduce, but we've seen the trend coming back again, because the stability of the business of the country as a whole, and businesses for that matter, is actually coming back. So the job market will revive for sure.
One of the things that you said to me off air about what's changing are job titles. When we
Yes.
talk about AI and automation,
Yeah.
one of the big things that you're seeing as a trend is how people are presenting themselves.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. So again, if we talk about the older category of the workforce, they all they see is a resume. But in the ideal scenario nowadays, employees are looking at themselves as an asset to the business rather than just an employee who's working for a business. So if you are applying for a job, don't look at your resume as just a piece of paper or even a LinkedIn page, for example. Check what industry you're looking for, check what problems this industry is actually suffering from right now, and present yourself as a solution person. Go there with a solution. So you have, let's say, 20 years of experience, plus your AI skill sets. Go there and give them a solution to a current problem they have right now.
Now, Anil, one of our listeners has been in touch on the text lines to say, does a highly experienced retiree in the field of HR wanting to get back into the workforce and having a golden visa stand a better chance?
Better chance because of the golden visa, or?
Unclear from how this is phrased, but stand a good chance, let's say, of getting back into the workforce after you've been retired. Let's take it that way.
Yeah, again, if this individual is if he can solve a problem in this world, then for sure, why not?
Yeah.
Age is just a number.
And for people who have been struggling for a while to get back into the job force for different reasons, maybe they've retired, they want to come back, maybe they were making a career transition, maybe they lost their jobs. There's so many different reasons for this. For somebody who's been stuck for a while, tried all the online applications, tried their network, done all the things you're supposed to do, but they're still struggling. What do you think they can do differently? What are the things people don't think to try?
I think a lot of people don't avoid networking. Face-to-face networking is very important. It's crucial. Again, we go back to the old saying: "People buy from people." So don't be stuck behind the screen all day applying for jobs. Go out there and speak to people, and you never know when this next hiring manager will be. It could be in a coffee shop. It could be in a gym, for example. I've seen a lot of these incidents and situations happen. So the more people you speak to, the more chances you get to be employed again.
Yeah. And another thing people are concerned about is the whole CV resume situation. When it comes to getting through an HR AI screening tool, as nowadays everyone's using these ATS sort of systems, right?
Yeah.
What can you do on your CV to make sure that you can actually get your foot in the door to meet with a person?
Look at the first page is the most important one, of course. And again, I go back to emphasizing on problem-solving skill sets. So if you can somehow emphasize on this point on the first page, you have to check which industry you're applying for. It's very important. And you have to relate your resume to the industry itself by making sure that you are putting all the emphasis on the first page. Second page isn't that important, in all honesty, because that HR manager or the talent acquisition, they're going through hundreds of resumes in the past in the same time, and that would not help them. If your resume is too long. Even the AI tools, exactly the same situation. So the first page for me is the most important.
Right. So focus in on that first page if you are having to use a resume. Ideally, you're not having to rely on getting through an ATS system anyways, because as you said, it's mostly these jobs are coming through networking, but not just that, coming through your personal brand. The idea that, if you are having a hard time and you have had a lot of experience, perhaps you need to be focused on making sure people are coming to you as well.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier on. Absolutely. I think personal brand is also equally important. The young generation are probably better than us, slightly older generation. They use, obviously, Instagram and Facebook, and, they post these, videos on Reels on these type of social media websites. The older generation should learn from this, and they should, if you have 20 years, 30 years experience in an industry, speak about it, become an advisor, free. But as long as you expose yourself to the world, then you should be recognized easier.
It's great advice, and it's one so often we don't take, especially if you're somebody who's a bit more introverted and you don't want to put yourself out there. You just like to put your head down and get your work done.
Yeah.
It can be a bit tougher for people like that.
It is, sadly. It is, if you're a bit introverted, you have to push yourself out and, you try your luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Zaid, thank you so much for coming in and giving us a lot of advice, for commenting on some of the HR-related stories that we've been seeing in the news as well.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sonia.
That's the voice there of Zaid Alhiali, who is co-founder of Mark Ellis, setting us straight. Listen, if you are of a certain age, he told me earlier, and you don't have people coming to you to work for so that you can do work for them, then perhaps you need to be focusing more on getting your name and your brand out there rather than sort of just applying online. So it is good advice indeed. If you do want to catch that full conversation, you can always download our Agenda podcast